Products by Sideline Sports Network. Hope y'all are having a great evening. Hope your Monday back at work wasn't terrible. Hopefully y'all are ready to get into some Florida State content. I want to give a shout out to the Florida State Rockies Club for sending me all the shirts that they did. Don't know exactly what name brand this is, but these shirts fit perfect. So I would like to get some more of them. Let me give a little bit of a shout out to all Florida State fans that follow Spirit Addicts. I have received more gifts by doing a television/podcast than I have in my entire life. The things that everybody sends me, the birthday gifts, I'm still waiting on one, but the amount of money that people spend on, I guess I should say, is extremely heartwarming, much appreciated. So I really appreciate everybody that supports the page, and then also supports me individually. Obviously, it's the dream to do this full time, and to only do this and nothing else. Not there yet, but if I continue to get people like you that are supporting the way that y'all support, I'll be there in no time, and I really appreciate all the support. I just want to make sure that that's known. I would assume that because of all the support that you enjoy the content that's put out. I will continue to put out content and continue to put out correct content. I won't make mistakes on putting out the wrong stuff. I won't make the mistakes of trying to be first. I will just make sure that I'm putting out what is correct. I've been told stuff about particular guys leaving that I'm not going to say anything about until they officially put their name into the transfer portal. There are a couple of guys that have been stated that will be leaving the program, but until they do so, I'm not saying a word about it. There was one entity that went ahead and put something out there about it. I'm not saying anything until it's done. And as always, Spirit Addicts is brought to you by Game Day Vodka. Game Day Vodka is an American-made, American distilled, and American-sold vodka. They are the official vodka of 9 colleges and 9 NFL organizations and 6 NBA organizations, if I'm not mistaken. Florida State is being one of them. They are the official vodka for Florida State University. So if you would like to check out their product, go to GameDayVodka.com. Order your team's favorite colors, and you won't be buying it just because of the colors. The vodka is extremely, extremely good. It's a very smooth vodka. It's distilled 6 times over. It's extracted with CO2, so it makes it extremely smooth. So if you could, just go check them out. Also, I want to give a shout out to GoArmy.com. Also want to give a shout out to Savage Sports. We got some big things coming with Savage Sports real soon. Also want to give a shout out to WSBN, which is World Sports Broadcasting Network. And I want to give a shout out to CBS HQ. We got a lot of things coming with all of those. I'm going to go as far as letting y'all know who I have stuff that's coming with. I will be, let's just say that Spirit Addicts is going to be big time real soon. So I appreciate all the support from the fans. If it wasn't for y'all watching and enjoying the content that we put out, no one would be giving us these opportunities. So if it wasn't for you guys and gals, we would be just a normal show, not anything special. I'm just glad that y'all believe that we're special and that you enjoy the content. So tonight's show, James and Chip are going to be a little bit late, but tonight's show we're going to be talking about Florida State's road to win the ACC title, get into the college football playoffs, and potentially win the national championship in 2023. That's correct. I'm saying it in 2023, not 2025, not 2033, but 2023. Florida State has a huge and legitimate chance, a better than a puncher's chance, in my opinion, at winning the whole thing. This is the best year for Florida State to catch everyone where they are. Let's get outside of the conference when I talk about this. So you've got Alabama, who's losing their best player in the quarterback. You've got Georgia, which is losing their quarterback in Stinson Bennett and also others. You've got LSU, which we play first, the first game of the season. We beat them last year for the first game of the season. We need to replicate that and do it again. Because that, in my opinion, is what sets up the season. If you win against LSU as soon as you start the season, then you are set up in the best type of way. What do I mean by that? So your first 4 games that you have, and then you get a bye, and then it's a brutal stretch after that. I'm going to be sharing our schedule up on the screen here shortly. But for now, we're going to talk about the 2 biggest games on Florida State's schedule as far as competition-wise. Obviously, the rival games are the rival games, and things can always happen in those games. Don't take any game for granted, that's for sure. But if Florida State does what they did last year and they handle their business, then they should be able to pull out wins against not only their in-state rivals with Florida and Miami, but also the ACC rival when it comes to Clemson. Yes, I understand that Miami is also an ACC team and that they also are an in-state rival. But here's the biggest part of this. Jude B just put this up. We forgot how fragile Jordan Travis is. If he gets hurt, it's all over. What I will say to that is I don't personally believe so. One, I don't personally believe that Travis gets hurt this year. Anything can happen. But with the offensive line being what the offensive line is, even better than it was the previous year, with whom we've added, is going to be – you've noticed in Travis's game where he slides more. He doesn't take off running as much. He doesn't take the big hits like he used to. That's the reason why he stayed healthy other than a part of a game in Louisville. Other than that, he was healthy the rest of the season. That's what you're looking for, is smart play from your quarterback, because it is true. You're only as good as your quarterback. Well, we know when Jordan is healthy, I put him up against anybody. I will put him up against anybody in the country. There was a stat list that was just dropped the other day on who was leading, in particular people's opinion, who was leading the Heisman Trophy candidate. And Jordan Travis was he was number 1 to number 2 amongst almost everyone that votes for where the Heisman sits and usually gets it right. So he's 1 or 2 on everyone's agenda. Now this is ACC, Big Ten, Pac-12, and Big 12. Nothing from the SEC on who they think is the top the top Heisman contender. But from all of the others, Jordan is up on the top of the list, 1 or 2. Jordan does need to stay healthy. I think that is very possible with what we have. Florida State is for the first time reloading instead of trying to recoup and get many others. I think I missed a super sticker just a moment ago. Let me show this on there. Michael, I really appreciate the trophy. It's a yellow smiling trophy, I'm assuming. It just gives me a readout, doesn't tell me what it is or show me. But I appreciate that. And also, Jeff has thrown out a $10 dono. And Jeff said, I think we're definitely going to make the playoffs. I think it's possible we can win a championship. 2 toughest games is Clemson and LSU. After that, the schedule is fairly weak, in my opinion. Well, like I said, Jeff, and I do agree that our 2 toughest games are going to be LSU and Clemson. But we do have to respect our rivals. I don't expect Miami to be great. I definitely don't expect Florida to be great. I actually think Florida's taken a bigger step back than Miami, which would be a bigger step anyway because Miami was worse last season than the Gators were. Barely, but they were worse. I don't think Miami becomes much better, but I don't think they take a huge step back like I think Florida's about to. Florida is going to be beat up heavily throughout the season with everyone that they have to play. They also don't have what you would call an elite starting quarterback. They're questionable at offensive line now because of who has transferred out and who has went into the league. They had 19 total players go into the league or to the transfer portal. Florida's lost a lot, so I don't think that Florida is going to be a huge problem for Florida State as long as we play our game. As long as we stop the ETN running back, Florida State should take care of business as far as Florida goes. And if you go to where Miami is, Miami's got TVD returning. The year before last, he was a completely different quarterback than he is this year or the previous year. Last year, he had a huge downward trend, missed multiple games, missed multiple passes, didn't trust his offensive line, did not trust his wide receivers to make catches. He also didn't trust himself in his reads because of how many mistakes that he was making. And I'm not saying that because of the words that came out of his mouth or because of a coach's mouth. His play proved every bit of that he did not trust himself nor his teammates. So I don't think he trusted the coach and the play calls either. So with that said, we should be able to take care of Miami as well. But let's start off. Do you think we will pick up any players from the portal when it reopens? If the amount of players enter the transfer portal that I anticipate that will, yes. But if everyone that is, let's say that only 6 people enter the transfer portal, Florida State won't be able to take anyone else in the transfer portal because we'll be at our 85 scholarships. We have 6 over the amount that we need right now. So we have to get down to 85 before we can take anyone else. I don't see James. He says that he's in here. Let me see if I can see why. No, I don't see him at all. Give me 1 second, everybody. I apologize for the inconvenience, but I got to figure out what's going on. See if I can figure out what's going on here. See what's going on. All right. We'll see if it lets James get in here or not. I personally don't see him. He says he's in here, but I don't see him. So with that, let's go over to the schedule real quick before I jump too far into things. So as you can see, we have our spring game coming up on April 15th at 4 p.m. It will be on the ACC Network Extra. So it's not going to be on ACC Network. You have to have the ACC Network Extra channel. A lot of people don't have that one. I don't even know why it exists when it took an act of Congress just for everybody to get the ACC Network. Why there is an extra, I have no earthly idea. I think it's ignorant, and it's just another way to piss off all the fans. But it is what it is. James, I brought you on. You're there at the bottom. I did not see you at all in the first part of this. If you're talking, I can't hear you. But anyways, moving on. April 15th, we have the spring game. It's going to give us a showcase of where Florida State's at. It's going to let us know what our offensive line looks like. But remember, during the situation, you do have someone like Robert Scott will be out. Fisk will be out. There'll be quite a few guys that are still not capable of doing everything. So it's not going to be your full team. So there will be a couple of guys missing throughout the situation. But then you move on, obviously, to September 3rd, where everyone should be back. Spike, possibly Micah Pittman won't be back and ready to go. But everyone else should be back and ready to play as far as the LSU game goes when we go to play in Orlando at Camping World Stadium. We have a huge tailgate plan for that one. We also have a huge tailgate plan for the spring game, but none will probably be bigger than the LSU game unless we go to the ACC championship and or to a playoff and national title game. James, you there?
I don't know. Oh, yeah. Now. Yes, I do know now.
All right. So basically, I'm going over the schedule and giving everyone a roadmap on how Florida State can win the ACC title and then move into the playoffs and potentially get to the national championship game. I'm trying to explain to everyone why I think this is Florida State's best shot in the near future is the now. The reason that I'm saying that is because if you take people that are outside of the conference but the normal contenders, you've got Georgia, who has lost their starting quarterback and also multiple others on defense and offense. Not saying that they won't have talent, not saying that they won't be right back in the mix, just stating that they will be somewhat a question mark going into the season because they don't have everything that they had last year. There should be some at least nervousness there from guys that didn't get to play 100% throughout the season. And then you take someone like Ohio State, they're also going to be losing their starting quarterback. Then you take Alabama, who also won't have their starting quarterback. And then there'll be multiple others that are also off of the team that entered the transfer portal and or have went on to move to the NFL draft. So I think Florida State has one of the best opportunities to make this their year based on everyone else losing more than we did. We have 82% returning plus what we've added to the transfer portal and also what has been added through the recruiting stature of 2022 because a lot of those guys are now going to be redshirt freshmen and they can start contributing right away to what Florida State's got going. Anything that you would like to point on how Florida State can make this their season?
Yeah, as people have also pointed out, so obviously it's the beginning of the season is really where you put yourself on the national forefront. So in that first month, you beat LSU, you beat Clemson. Now there isn't anybody from a talent perspective that has more talent than those two teams that you beat. Now, from a national perspective, the Big Ten is probably going to be up for grabs more than it's been any given time. Michigan should be the team that's primed to win it again. But because Ohio State lost starting quarterback, they returned Marvin Harrison Jr., the good wide receiver. But that's pretty much it. Not saying they don't have talent, just saying they don't have guys that were as good as before. But I still don't think Michigan Harbaugh can do it. And I don't think Penn State is going to be good enough to really come in and challenge as well. Then when you go out to the West Coast, the only team that I think should be emerging to where people will have just as much excitement about them as they do about Florida State would be USC. And that's because you have the reigning Heisman Trophy winner in Caleb Williams. You have some other tremendous talent that's coming back. And they were probably a bad game away from being able to be in the college football playoff as well. Even though they did get beat by Tulane, those things tend to happen when you have 30 days to be able to map out and prepare for a team. But if Florida State is able to come and beat LSU, who will have a quarterback who they will probably be marketing as their Heisman Trophy candidate, the Florida State should really be in the forefront. The hardest thing that Florida State has to compete with is Florida State. And not reading press clippings, being tunnel vision with the sole purpose of winning as many games as they could possibly win with the hopes of getting NFL stardom off of that. But I think, the schedule is also, we say weak in comparison. Duke is a good team based upon last year, should be improved. I'll just go with this. LSU bowl eligible. Southern Miss bowl eligible. Clemson bowl eligible. Syracuse should be bowl eligible. Duke should be bowl eligible. Wake Forest will be bowl eligible. Pittsburgh will be bowl eligible. North Alabama will make the D2 playoffs. But when you look at those, and then Miami and Florida have enough name recognition to where it still means something. So when you go and you see them play, you may be like, all right, well, they should have blew them out, or they're going to beat this team. But there's nobody on there like outside of North Alabama where you're just like, oh, this team is just really terrible. This team is trash. They're just good enough to be able to, if you win, you're going to continue to check marks. And it won't be like 2014 where you have to blow people out, or even 2013 when we got into the stakes by blowing people out and having not quality wins, but having sex appeal being one of the highest scoring offenses in NCAA history. But you should. But I think a solid 2 to 3 touchdown average over some of your your lesser opponents should put you in a position to where you're playing for the ACC championship, and no matter what, even if it's not Clemson and somehow it's North Carolina, that's still another team that's good enough to be able to, no matter, let's say if we're number 6 in the playoff voting, we beat North Carolina or Clemson in the ACC championship, we should be in that playoff. At least that 4. I think we'll be like the 3rd or 4th team. I don't think we've shown enough over the last couple of years to be able to get into that top 2, unless Georgia just folds completely, and I don't see that happening. I actually think people are going to see a different level of Georgia this year.
Yeah, I'm fully expecting that Georgia takes a downward trend. Not that will be bad. They'll be good enough to get – it depends on – it's kind of like Florida State. Georgia's going to be Georgia's worst enemy. If Georgia can get things clicking, then Georgia can make it back to, the playoffs, in my opinion. But they do have to play people like LSU. I personally believe that Florida State and LSU sit in a very similar spot in different conferences. LSU's got a lot returning. LSU also has a lot that they added with the transfer portal. So LSU and the SEC, as far as them being the SEC West, they could potentially run the SEC this year, and also be that if they only lose to Florida State, let's say that we get to the first game, Florida State, wins against LSU, and then LSU gets things clicking very similar to the way they did last year, except for, in fact, they don't lose any of their conference games. Then they don't lose the SEC championship game. They're automatically going to be in the playoffs. If they only lose to us, they will definitely be in the playoffs, in my opinion. So, therefore, with beating LSU, that would be your premier win throughout the season, especially if LSU makes it beyond the SEC championship. If they win that and they end up in the college football playoffs, that win's going to hold a lot of weight. Will that mean that it's very possible that if LSU only loses to us and we have some close games against some of the teams that we're going to play, and LSU wins considerable against everyone that they've got, it's very possible that they're ranked above us because of their strength of schedule, because of extra things, SEC bias. I don't want to say that the wrong way, but it's the truth. The SEC is a stronger conference than the ACC right now. Has been for quite some time. We're not going to argue that fact. But I'm not worried about how LSU gets there. I worry about how Florida State gets there. I think that it adds up well for Florida State to play LSU the first game of the season, because LSU will start clicking later on. It's better for us to play them early, which we play them the first game. And then you play Clemson, your 4th game of the season, which I also think goes in the right direction for Florida State because of what we have returning versus what Clemson's trying to figure out. Clemson's got a new quarterback coming in, new offense and defensive coordinator. So there's a lot of new things system-wise that's getting implemented and changed, and that's not an easy task. There's a lot of things that take place for that to work as one and be a well-oiled machine. So where we catch the 2 best possible opponents that we have are, in my opinion, at the right spot. Right after, let's say we beat LSU the way that we think we will, we should take care of Southern Miss at home, and then we go play Boston College. Boston College is not going to be a good team this year. I'm not saying take them lightly, but talent versus talent, Florida State should handle that game well, in my opinion. And then obviously you show up in Clemson, South Carolina to play against Clemson, which is now your second most, if not the first biggest opponent that you have as far as strength goes. If you take care of Clemson, then you automatically should be in the cusp of the talks of being top 5 in the country, in my opinion. If you beat LSU and Clemson within that span of time, you should be talked about as a top 5 team. But remember, week 11 that they finally start with the college football playoff rankings? It's somewhere around there. So it's not like that's going to mean a whole lot. But Florida State, let's just cap this over. We beat LSU, we beat Southern Miss, we beat Boston College, we beat Clemson. That makes you 4-0. Then you go to a bye, and then you play Virginia Tech, which Virginia Tech will be better than they were last year, but not by much. Florida State should be able to handle Virginia Tech. Syracuse, I'm never going to count them out because of the type of year that they had last year. Luckily, by the time they played us, they were injured throughout the wazoo, and it was still, they were still a competitive team throughout the first couple of quarters. But let's just say that Florida State handles Syracuse. In my opinion, Duke is one of the sleeper teams of the season because of what Duke was able to do last year, because Duke has so much returning, because Duke has nothing to lose. Duke could be a very difficult opponent, in my opinion. The great part of it is they have to come play us at Florida State, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, they do. They have to come play us at home. So Florida State should be able to take care of Duke. I think that's going to be a very good game, and you cannot get caught sleeping against Duke, in my opinion, which James had stated that Duke is, in his opinion, a bowl-eligible team. So we're playing a lot of teams that are probably going to be in a bowl game at the end of the season. So it's not like we're playing against a bunch of scrubs, but at the same time, it's not the strongest schedule that Florida State's ever had to play. James, do you worry about Wake Forest at all, just because of what they've done in the past to Florida State and us playing at Wake Forest?
I think they have two wide receivers who are capable, big guys that can run, play jump ball. But I think a lot, I can't say it intelligently until I see their quarterback. I think people sleep on how good Sam Hartman was in that Wake Forest system, in that slow zone read. Like the amount of patience that you have to have as a running back and as a quarterback to be able to have that slow mesh is tremendous. I don't think another guy without experience really comes in and gives you the same thing. I think that's why I think this game will be a little bit different. Now, Wake Forest in the past used to give us trouble because it was a really crappy field, but it's not anymore. So straight grassy turf. But I think we should be able to beat them pretty handily. And I think the last couple of games, especially last year, our defense did finally figure it out, and we just ran out of time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious, and I'll know more, and I'll get it more. Like right now, I would, if somebody said, if I had a little bit of spare money and somebody said, hey, my account said you could bet this much money and then you write it off on your taxes, I'm going to lay it. I could lay it on Florida State to at least be in the college football playoff. But if I wait until we play LSU, or if we play LSU and somebody asks me to make a bet on a national championship game, depending on how we play them, will make me feel better because I look at how we ended the season. Or after the 3-game skid, Florida State had an offensive explosion that really was second to none. And if we can continue to put up points like that with everybody coming back another year mature, will be very difficult to deal with. I think, for whatever reason, Jordan Travis didn't want to use his legs. Maybe it was fear of getting hurt. And that's where we went to the Wake Forest, NC State, Clemson skid. And I think in those games, if he uses his legs maybe one or two more times, that game is a lot different.
I definitely agree. Shout out to Michael Bartz. He just sent a $20 donation, and his comment was, I personally see a 11-1 season, and if the loss doesn't happen, we run the table. We need to be hungry and don't shoot ourselves in the foot. Knowles for life. I think everyone's on the same chapter, at least. We're not just in the same book, we're on the same chapter. Florida State could be its biggest enemy if we don't dot all I's and cross all T's. So I definitely agree with what Michael's saying as far as 11-1 season. I was planning on doing this later on, but I'm going to do this now. My prediction for the season, the regular season, is 11-1, which I've told people that. What I didn't tell anyone is what loss, which one did I think was the loss. So that everybody understands this, I think that Florida State handles LSU to a very close game, but I think we handle LSU in Orlando because of catching them early. I believe that we handle Southern Miss, Boston College, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Duke, Wake Forest, Pittsburgh, Miami, North Alabama, and Florida. I think that we handle all of them. And this game that I have us losing is a 50-50 shot. The only reason that I give them the win in this is because we're playing them at home, and that's Clemson. I do think that Florida State gets revenge in the ACC championship against Clemson and beats them and becomes the ACC champion. But I do believe that Clemson could potentially have a little bit over us we haven't figured out how to beat them yet, and we're also playing them at home. But with that said, it would not surprise me at all if Florida State pulls out that win. So that is my prediction for the season, that Florida State goes 11-1, losing to Clemson in the regular season. But I'm going to just repeat myself, but beat them in the ACC championship. And I would take that over us beating Clemson in the regular season and then losing to them in the ACC championship. James, what is your thoughts on that?
I think Florida State, I have them as 11-1 because I think that there's going to always be a hiccup game. Hopefully that hiccup game will be September 30th and it won't count. It'll be our idle week. But I think if it were going to happen, I think it's hard to beat the same team twice in one season. So I think if you're repeating against Clemson in the ACC championship, but you beat them good, another close game, people won't be opposed to seeing that game again. But the difficult part in it becomes, well, yeah, one of you can sneak in and be that fourth team. We saw it with TCU. They played so well all season, and nobody else really came in and just snatched that fourth spot. So that will really be where we're at. So, but I think it's all predicated on if FSU has one loss. It depends on who the one loss is to, and that one loss team has to be basically a 1 or a 2 loss team as well.
Exactly. I want to give a shout out to William McMillan for the $5 donation. He says Duke is going to upset Clemson in the opener of 2023. And I'll say this. If Duke upsets Clemson in the opener of the season, I take back that Florida State loses to Clemson on September the 23rd. I think Duke's going to be good. I don't think they're going to be great. But if they are good enough to pull off a win against Clemson, then I think you kind of start seeing Clemson guys kind of let go of their season. Even though that's the season opener, I think that they're not going to have as much confidence in themselves, and they might leave themselves open for Florida State to chime in and pull out that win in South Carolina or whatever it is in Death Valley. I'm sure that's South Carolina. But I think that this season holds well for what Florida State can do. I think that Florida State, like James has said multiple times, is their worst enemy. That's just the way that it is. I think that Florida State, as long as they can overcome themselves on making mistakes, the Florida State can have the season that Florida State wants to have. And obviously every team in college football, as far as Power 5 goes, their goal every year is to get to the playoffs and go to the national championship. So it's not like that Florida State's got a different goal than they did last year or the year before. The fact is that it's more doable with what we've got coming back. We have a better opportunity at what we're going to be up against throughout the season. James, do you think, I heard you talk a little bit about this today when someone asked you a question, and it was a good question because I commented, but they asked who was going to be worse this year, Miami or the Gators. You kind of give us a little bit of what you said as far as that goes.
Yeah, I think it'll be the Gators, and we can pick apart rosters. I honestly think both have similar rosters. There is talent on those rosters. Miami might have a little bit better talent, but I think Miami's schedule is a lot easier. And what I do is I look at the schedule. I see 4 losses without really doing any introspective thinking on the University of Miami's schedule based upon right now. When I look at Florida, I can count 6, and I can 6, and there's really 6 ones that I don't think they have any chance of winning. 3 that I think are toss-ups and only 3 guaranteed victories. Florida could legitimately have 4 wins limping into Thanksgiving when they see us. And then Billy's tenure will have even more question marks on it moving into that next season as he does. And the real reason is Miami has DVD. I think not DVD. They have DVD too. They have TVD. Tyler Van Dyke, who played terrible last year. Their quarterback room was atrocious. But we've seen Tyler Van Dyke in a wide open offense do really good. The problem is he doesn't have wide receivers that match his wide open offense. And right now, if you look at the videos they're putting together, their chemistry is tragic. But it also comes in, and I can't really say they're going to be great because they haven't had their coaches for a month yet. A lot of them. So, but they do have a decent running back. They have some offensive linemen that they've brought in that I think will eventually be good once they learn the game. But and I don't know much about their defense besides the coordinator's been fired and he was more known for his special teams acumen than he was as a defensive coordinator. But again, when I look at their schedule, they have, I don't see them really like having any world beaters on their schedule, like anything to really be afraid of outside of, I think they play Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina. And I believe NC State is on that roster too. So those are really the only games that I really see them just that I could just say if you told me to bet right now, I would bet right now on the other side. The other games, I mean, I'm not saying they'll win them, but they're more toss-ups. But Florida, I mean, they're playing Georgia, they're playing LSU, they play us. I'm trying to go off the top of my head with the schedule. They play Missouri at Missouri. They play well, obviously they should be afraid of Vanderbilt still because they lost to Vanderbilt. My bad. So Kentucky is at Kentucky, LSU, Georgia, Florida State, South Carolina at South Carolina, and there was one more in there that I just felt like that I didn't think that they were, and that's not including like Arkansas. Give Arkansas as a toss up, but I think Arkansas has a better team than them right now. I could joke about, like I said, I'll joke about Vandy, but I won't ever really just go and lay money on Vandy. But I don't know if that's just as guaranteed to win as it's been in the past few years. Mertz is not wowing a lot of people, and they're wording it very well with their beat writers, but they're basically still showing the concern. And when you have a quarterback right now who wasn't highly touted coming in, who a lot of people who almost didn't come toward the end of his recruitment because of Billy Napier and such, but now he's playing baseball, and he is because in his so he may be a guy that's competing for your job as a guy who's never taken any collegiate reps, a guy who doesn't get much, missed the entire spring. Like that's just not saying a lot of. Again, it's not the confidence in the quarterback room, and that's not me trolling. That's just giving an accurate assessment based upon rosters and what the schedule is. Florida State, even with us, even though we returned most of our production, if our schedule, Tennessee, that was it. I appreciate it. Thank you. I knew it was in there somewhere. It was some games that I know. If you got to be a stupid fan. There's only one guy, Sherm, who's a big Gator booster. Family's big Gators. His granddaddy is the Bull Gator of all Bull Gators. He's probably the only person. I don't think he's that big of a fan to where he's going to bet Florida versus Tennessee right now, unless it's like 35. The spread's 35, and he thinks Florida's going to lose by he's going to be a 33-point game or something like that. But Florida State, if we had a harder schedule, like if this was even with this team, I believe 26 is the year we have Alabama, Notre Dame, Miami, Clemson. Like it's like 5 games that are just, whoa, who made this? I would be like, all right, man, yeah, I don't want to bet. Like this, I'm just gonna have fun this season. That's what I want to say. But right now, based upon how things laid out, this might be Florida State's easiest schedule that they've had in the better part of a decade.
I definitely agree. That's why 2023 can be very special for Florida State. And before you got on here, someone had said that we forget how fragile Jordan Travis is. Jordan Travis, one, has beefed up. He's added some weight. Two, with the way he played last year, was sliding, not taking the big hits, not taking off to run as much as he used to. I feel like Jordan's going to play a very smart game this year, and that means all games. Does that mean that he can't get hurt? No, he can still get hurt, but I think he's going to limit that possibility as much as he can. So I personally think that Florida State is set up to do the best that they possibly can for the next few years, tenure-wise, because we do have a lot of question marks after this season. We have a lot of raw talent.
Did Jordan Travis not play every game last year?
The only one that he was out for is the second part of Louisville.
Yeah, I think we have to be careful as a fan base and as people who want to have real good. And I'm not knocking this person's IQ on it, but I'm just saying we have to watch. Again, consume everything, but sometimes you gotta leave the bones. You just gotta take the meat. And what I mean by that is, a guy isn't injury prone if he's playing. It's a violent sport. You get banged up. If people want to know the truth, like I play on a Saturday, and I didn't practice. I mean, I did the walkthrough on Monday, like middle of the season. I didn't do anything on Tuesday, which is our full pad practice. Then did very little on Wednesday. Thursday, my body's coming back to life. Friday, we travel so I can do it all again on Saturday. Like, it's a collision game. And now, even when he played the year before, I think a lot of that, the previous year, if they wouldn't have fell in love, I call it, and this, I don't mean this as disrespect. I think we fell in love with the Disney movie.
Mm-hmm.
And Mackenzie Milton's story is amazing. He's going to be an amazing coach one day. And it was tragic what happened to him. The fact that he's even walking is a tremendous, is a testament to how good he is. But I think Florida State mortgaged their future on falling in love with a few plays. Kenny Dillingham even came out and said that drive that they actually went and scored, which he didn't score the touchdown. The touchdown was scored by Corbin, I believe, in the Wildcat. Both quarterbacks both quarterbacks threw for 40 yards on that drive. It was one really, really good ball, really, really well-timed ball. But after that, I think he threw, and then one very heady play that was very athletic. But after that, his percentage was well below 50%. And he lost to Jacksonville State. And I think while Jordan was hurt and he was banged up, I believe he could have played. And we saw him come into Wake Forest, and we saw him move the ball when we were playing Wake Forest. So I think the injury narrative that we've been implanted with us was more coach speak and media taking it and running with this. Because again, you play the schedule we played last year. There wasn't a timeout except for Louisville, and I even believe that was more precaution. If you want the truth, if Tate would have went out there and played like he played against Jacksonville State his first game, you would have saw Jordan Travis in there trying to salvage that Louisville game. But Tate played in a phenomenal game. There was no need to move him back. So I think when we talk about people injury prone, we got to look at all of the facts that are presented. And then, I'm not saying anybody was lying, but I'm just saying when we look at the facts presented, we could probably use a little deductive reasoning and common sense and see, like, all right, well, man, if he played every game, like, and then like if it's a knee injury, it ain't like you could just, I blew out my knee or my knee's banged up. I'm gonna sit out one game, then I'm gonna come and scramble around the world, and then my knee's hurting again. Nah, that's not how this game is played. Continuity is one of the best the best ability is availability in football. So. But I also think this. I went out I've been to 2 practices, and I've been impressed with Tate Rodemaker. If I can be impressed with Tate, I'm going to say as a fan base, we should be impressed. Because if you have listened to what I said about him, I've called him, I said he's going to be a great insurance salesman. He's going to be a phenomenal football coach. I said his calling in life is probably to be a good father. I just don't think it was football. That Louisville game changed my mind a little bit. I even said some harsh things during the Louisville game in the beginning, but then I changed my mind. But then seeing him play, he's got a really decent command of the offense. I'm not saying national championship, but I'm saying if we're at a point now, if J Trap does get hurt for a few games, I'm not finna just go and say, oh my goodness, we're about to Virginia Tech's gonna blow us out because we got Tate out here. No, I'm gonna feel comfortable. I'm gonna feel confident that we're gonna we still have Trey Benson here, that we still have 6'1" Johnny Wilson. We still got some other guys, and if you haven't seen what Winston Wright's been able to do, like, man, it's almost there. It's not there yet, but it's almost there. We've got some tools in this. We got some tools. We got some weapons that kind of make you feel like even if you have adequate, competent quarterback play where the guy's not throwing, he's not creating turnovers, and he's taking what's given, I think we can have a good season regardless.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And then, what I think is going to be a huge factor this year, Biscuit really started showing up at tight end near the end of the season last year. We were doing, was it McDonald's, how you say his name? But we were doing him a service as a senior tight end. We were continuing to let him start and play and get his opportunities. But Biscuit, in my opinion, was the better all-around tight end that we had. And then you throw in that we pulled in Kyle Morlock, and then the guy that's going to literally we're going to have particular plays that we're going to do on offense because of his ability is Jaheim Bell. What we're going to be able to do inside the red zone this year, I think Florida State had a decent red zone team, but now I think we have a great red zone team with who we're being able to add throughout the transfer portal. Jaheim Bell is going to be a huge factor in what Florida State can accomplish as far as the short passing game goes, in my opinion. Then we're going to have Winston Wright back. And then if all is willing and Pittman ends up being healthy again, if you think about those gentlemen on the field at the same time, we're going to be an extremely dangerous team, first, second, third down, no matter what. But in the red zone, we're going to have so many options. Like James just said, you got Johnny Wilson at 6'7". You got Kyle Morlock, 6'7". You got Deuce Spann, 6'4", 6'5". You've got Biscuit, 6'4", 6'5". You're going to have so many huge targets that should be able to win those 50-50 balls that really ain't 50-50 anymore because of the size that they're going to be able to box out almost anybody that's against them. Plus, the ability and the development that Johnny Wilson's been going through this offseason, his hands have become much better. And I think he did a decent job last year, but the things that he worked on in his craft over the offseason and is continuing to work on, I'm very impressed with where Johnny is as far as that number one wide receiver. And then Deuce Spann has developed into a really great second piece as wide receiver goes. This isn't the same Deuce Spann that we saw last year. This young man has evolved and has upped his game in so many different sections that I'm very impressed with what he's going to be able to do. And then we just did a space Sunday at 3 with Robert Scott Jr., and he was talking about Keziah Holmes, and I might mess up a little bit of what he said, but I'm going to try to get it as close as I can. He was like, well, I'm going to start off with that boy strong. He said when we came into the weight room, what he was being able to press and also what he was being able to squat. So we're going to start with that, the boy's strong. He said then we're going to talk about that boy's fast. So if he gets into that seam, somebody's going to be in trouble because he can move. He said, then we're going to say that boy's got vision. He said his elusiveness is very much like Trayshawn Ward with who went and moved on. So he was like, that's all I really have to say about Keziah Holmes. You should be able to put the rest of this together, is what he said. So he's very impressed with Keziah Holmes. You already know what you get in Trey Benson. And Trey Benson has done a wonderful job. He said it, along with Coach Atkins, that he missed out on it at minimum 400 yards last year.
Easy.
That's what they've been working on. They've been working on being patient and hitting the right hole, getting into the right seam, doing the right things before you just drop your shoulder. And now I love that. I love dropping the shoulder and bulldozing people over. But if you could have scored a touchdown or got 13 more yards, let's by all means get that touchdown or 13 more yards, because it sets you up on those drives to win. It sets you up on those drives to become better. And that's what Florida State has been working on with the guys that are returning. It's about fixing the things that they didn't accomplish last year. With the new guys that came in, like the Jaheim Bells, it's about using him in a way that his former team did not. We're setting up these guys to succeed. So this is how Norvell, Atkins, Fuller, and the rest of the guys are setting this team up. This is a very analytical coaching staff. They are very, very dialed in to what these guys can do best. They're very dialed into how to make them showcase their abilities at their best. So I think Florida State has a huge shot in 2023 to be, I don't want to say it's a Cinderella story because I think it's kind of expected by a lot of people. And I'm not just talking about Florida State fans. I think that even on a national base, people are like, hey, they got something working down in Tallahassee. So watch out for that team. Don't count them out because they're doing special things down there.
James, I think the Keziah thing, just to piggyback on that, I think I came on here last week and I said he's Trayshawn Ward with +2 speed. So like where Trayshawn, and I think that's what will be the game changer. You talked about Trey Benson saying some things, and I used to call him my coach who, by the way, there's going to be a thing. I think I'm going to go to it on April 16th after the spring game for Billy Sexton. He had a stroke. He was long-time running backs coach, my position coach, but he had some great sayings that I found myself I use all the time. But he called it you can't be a blind dog in the meat house. So basically, blind dogs just smells the meat, and he don't know where it's at, but he's just going to run, and then eventually you're going to run into it. And that's what you would see sometimes, and that's what he would say when you don't have the vision. And if he was able to see, I think when me and you were sitting there in Oklahoma at the Oklahoma game, I was telling you, Chris, I'm like, man, if he would have just been patient, took one more step to the left, the hole was right there. But he's running into his lineman. I'm pressing the hole too fast. Another kid that I've been thoroughly impressed with is Rodney Hill. For him to be how the size he is, how explosive he is, and how he runs behind his pads, I think when Toafili finally leaves, you'll see what Florida State wants to see between Keziah Holmes and Rodney Hill, and that'll be a really good thing. But Keziah did this thing that in the practice that I saw in 11-on-11, that was amazing. He pressed the hole, there was nothing there. He took a step back and jump cut to the side, and it immediately accelerated. And it wasn't the speed that you were like, it's not. It was fast. I could tell it's fast because other people looked like they were moving in place, but it didn't look fast. If that makes sense, he was covering ground. So I think that's again, that means he's also a powerful runner. So he's not a light guy. So he's not a guy you're going to get snatched back, which was funny. I want to give people this taste right here. So I remember that. I wish I could have recorded it, but they don't want us to record that kind of stuff. But Farmer. Trey Benson actually read the hole well. But Farmer took them long, big arms, reached back and grabbed that jersey and pulled him back. And I was just like, whoa, that's a strong boy. That boy's been up eating his greens from out of the Port St. Joe area. So it's some I don't know who it's gonna be, but I can't wait till when we come back at the end of the season or the narratives are being created so that my sons and other people, young fans and fans in general, will start saying, okay, this is the guy that's like Pete. This is the guy that's like Ernie Sims. This is the guy that's like Leon Washington or Warwick Dunn or Rock Preston. We just don't have that guy yet, but it's cool to see guys wanting to be that guy. So that means we're getting close.
I absolutely agree. Let everybody know where you want them to follow you at and stuff, James, and I'm going to finish this thing off real quick. but I want you to let everybody know where to find you and all of that stuff so we can get this one wrapped up here shortly.
All right. At Den Media Group on YouTube. That's where you can find us. We do a show, Big Games BS, 3 days a week. We'll have some more content coming up. We're at 1762 in the follows right now. So that means if we get to, I'll probably do if we before the next show, we get to 2,000 followers, we'll give away $240. If not, the goal is to get to 2,000 followers, where we will give $200, and every time we get above that number, we'll give away 10%. So 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. As long as we're getting those numbers, we'll give away 10% of whatever we get. So we're trying to grow the channel. If you like what we're doing, consider subscribing. I mean, not just consider subscribing, consider becoming a member. No big deal. Want to get people to subscribe and check out the spring tailgate. That's pinned on at Big Game James _36. We're gonna try to have a good time, just a good little tune up. Watch the spring game before we do the big dog Labor Day weekend, which you're not gonna want to miss that one. It's gonna be kid friendly. We're gonna have some cool stuff that we're gonna be able to do for everybody.
Yep, absolutely. And everyone, I did put in the chat Den Media Group's YouTube link. I also put it up here on the screen. You probably won't be able to click on it from the screen, but if you go in the chat, you can click on it. And also remember, if you wait just a few minutes after the show goes up, you can go click on the link in the description because it's always there. Also, the tailgate link to get tickets to the tailgate is also in there. And then also the tailgate link for the LSU game will eventually start being in there as well. So all of those things that we're talking about are to your availability in the description of the video or in the chat right now. You can go and subscribe to Den Media. And if you feel so that you want to support it further, then you can become a member and get all the perks that James has got working at Den Media. You heard what he said, over $200 as soon as it gets to 2,000 members. Be one of those people and have that opportunity to win $200. And I'll tell you what he won't be opposed to is if you win, you can take tailgate tickets versus the money if that's what you want to do. I'm sure he'll make that work. So with that, James, I appreciate you coming on and giving us your opinions on what Florida State can do this year. We'll see you again real soon. I'll be giving you a call in the morning, if not this afternoon or a little bit later this evening. But there's some things that are supposed to work out in the morning at 7 a.m. with me. So I can call you here in a little while or text you and let you know what those are.
I'll be up. I'm driving to Tampa tomorrow, so. But yeah, just hit me up.
All right, James. Appreciate it. Go Noles. Well, everyone, there you go. You see where James and I are coming from and what we think Florida State can do in the 2023 season. I have Florida State going 11-1. At worst case scenario, we would go 10-2. I can't tell you who that second loss is. That's if a lot of things go wrong, Florida State could lose a second ball game. I don't see that happening. I see Florida State potentially winning out the entire season and not losing any ball games. But the analytics in my mind tell me that Florida State has a chance of losing that one particular game that I spoke on, but it's a 50-50 shot. It's a 50-50 game in my opinion. It depends on what Florida State team shows up. It depends on who makes the least amount of mistakes on who ends up winning that ball game. But I do believe Florida State goes 11-1. I believe they win the ACC title, and I believe they go into the college football playoffs for the 2023 season. If you're not subscribed to the Stratus channel yet, make sure that you go and subscribe. If you have not liked this video yet, once you back out, go back to the video real quick, hit the thumbs up, give it a like so more and more Seminole fans can see this. If you have not become a member yet, please do so because the next episode, I will be giving away this mini signed Mike Norvell chrome helmet. So make sure that you check that out. Make sure that you become a member for multiple multiple enters, and then also if you're subscribed, you are